What is up, guys? Welcome back to the True Value Podcast. Today it is me, your host, Christian, and I'm sitting down with a newer producer on the scene. This is DJ Connect, aka my brother in law, Lance Delgado. He is also a bachelor's degree right now in psychology and is working on his master's. So, welcome on.
No doubt. Should I clip this on? I don't.
I
I
mean,
don't.
no, we can just have it right here in the middle.
It'll
It's
be
still
mic'd
being
up.
Well, the other one's been kind of faulty lately, so I've been having to kind of work in between.
No room for bum mics over here.
Facts. It's been a kind of a trial period.
Live and you learn. That's what it's about. That's
That's
a true
it.
value right there. Right. Learning.
Absolutely. And that's like the whole thing is like wanting to have the better conversations about the learning curves that life has brought to both of us to honestly see how we can help others in discussing how to overcome the obstacles that we are always facing in general so that they can find some better value in how they want to direct themselves.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, like, what did you have in mind? Like, what kind of trials specifically?
Well, I mean, life trials. It's always a twist and a turn.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like it's every day. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop. It's like that's one thing that I've definitely learned is like it doesn't ever get easier. Like when you're younger, you're like, man, when I'm older and I got it all together and like everything's figured out, like I'll just be able to do whatever I want and it'll all be easy. And it's like the more that you achieve, like the more you're responsible for maintaining, so it never really actually slows down. It just kind of compounds and stacks. So like, I feel like success isn't just something that people don't achieve because they can't. But I think like deep down is like, it kind of scares them because like once you actually do reach the goal, then like that's the new bar, like that's the new standard, like falling below that is seen as regression. So like it's a lot of responsibility to keep your head above that.
But I also think that comes from like people in general trying to establish that perfectionism is something so much greater than just achieving the goals as you're going along. Instead, they're looking at this is the maximum goal instead of celebrating their minimal goals, which also is a big compounding factor when you're thinking about progress in general. So, like, yes, it is scary, and that's definitely not a lie, but it's also the choice we make every day in whether or not we hold it as, okay, I'm proud of myself for making it to this step. What's the next step? Because it doesn't have to be all the way there all at once.
Yeah, but then because it's like, but I feel like right there if you start to get too celebratory, I feel like you start to fall into complacence. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get is like they start to celebrate those little goals a lot. And soon that's all they need to achieve to feel happy. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing for everybody else to recognize an accomplishment, but like I think that having your mind on that bigger goal and keeping your eye on that prize is what's going to really get you there in the end. Like if you're going to stop every minute, and celebrate every minute goal you've accomplished along the way, then you're going to waste a lot of time and you're going to probably like, you might discourage yourself from even going forward, I would feel, because like you said, I have a bachelor's degree. I'm going for my master's right now. And my mom was like insistent that I walk, that I like go and do the whole ceremony and get my diploma and everything. And it wasn't something that I really wanted to do because I know that school was not over, right? You know what I mean? There's no Super Bowl champion that's celebrated at halftime.
Well, yeah, but like I said, it comes down to the choice on how you view it. So if you perspectivize, yes, I made it through this next goal, what's the next thing I can go and achieve that's going to ultimately line up to this bigger picture? You're never truly finished, but you get to feel proud of yourself instead of
But I feel like you are
yourself.
finished with some things. Like I'm going to be doing what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I'm going to be pursuing my passions and my interests for the rest of my life. And that's something I'll never be done doing. But like, I will be done with academics at one point. You know what I mean? Like, I will be done with certain things. Like, your life does kind of move along and progress in like chapters. You know what I mean? There's sections to your life, and it's just based on what steps you're taking. You know what I mean? And it's like definitely when I get this master's degree, I'll be celebrating for sure. And when I get my first real, position in my field, I'll be celebrating for sure. And if I ever do something really super big with music, noteworthy, I'll be celebrating. Even right now, I got a couple songs signed to a couple promo labels, and I did celebrate that. But like, I feel like the celebration has to be proportionate to the achievement.
That's what I'm saying. So it's okay to celebrate.
Certainly, you should definitely feel good about it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's good to fully bring that in and hold that in your heart that you finished that, because it is a big thing. It's a big movement. It's a big step towards the ultimate end goals that you're aiming for. But what can you say some of the biggest difficulties you dealt with in general, just for yourself, when going through the process to even just get to right here, not only within your music, but within your schooling and wanting to just bring forward more to the livelihood that you have here with the niece and the nephew and
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, I had my first kid pretty early. Like, I had her when I was 20 years old. And so,
which she's now 13 and a great terror in my life, but
and is about to be going into high school. So,
still my one of my favorite people because she's just as smart as this man here.
and I feel like, and in that same line of thought, right, is I feel like I did a lot of growing up with her. I don't have the same relationship with that child as a lot of parents do with their kids, or that I even do with my youngest son, my son, because I had already matured fully by the time he was born. And my daughter, I still had a lot of growing up to do. And so, like, and she helped me do a lot of that because there's nothing really like having a daughter as a father that teaches you to see beyond yourself. And that's a skill that I was able to really apply to life, and it got me real far. And it's a skill that I feel like a lot of people don't apply, maybe because they don't have the inspiration, or they're not put in the situation where it's necessary. So it's like you asked about, a big difficulty that I had, and I would say like trying to parent and figure that out really early on was difficult, but
Rewarding.
it taught me so much so many valuable lessons that like I wouldn't even have considered it a difficulty now. Like if you had asked me back then, I would have said that. But now it's kind of hard to even see it as a difficulty just because of how much I learned.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're not exactly sure where our chartered path is going to go, what obstacles are going to feel so minute once we've achieved past them, which is like one of the bigger topics in general because a lot of people don't know how to move past certain obstacles that they have within themselves. But I find that that's a mental blockage because we've told ourselves or we've been told so many times that we're not going to succeed past that or
Right.
we can't do it. And that mindset alone, which I actually appreciated. I watched a Danny Morel video earlier today where he was like, the mental blockage of you saying I can't is the biggest issue that everyone is going to face.
Hmm.
And once you realize you hit that mark where you just kind of say, fuck it,
Right.
I can't afford to not, and I'm
Right.
not willing to be minimized to less than what I'm capable of. That's when you start making those rapid progressions towards the next phase
Hmm.
where you are going to learn more because it's never an ending journey. It's a continuous education. Like it is our only one life that we know
Right. Right. I say that all the time. Is you got one shot, and kind of just on that same note is like, you know, it's just like you gotta stay consistent in your pursuits, right? And like, so that's why it's important to pursue something that you're passionate in. You're passionate towards it because, like, at the end of the day, if you are super passionate about what you're doing, then you're gonna do a good job. And if you're doing that good of a job, then you will be proportionately rewarded for it. You know what I mean? If you stay consistent. And that's the whole thing there is like, you can't just decide that you can't do it because there's two types of fuck it, right? Fuck it, I'm not going to, and fuck it, let's go.
of. It's just
And
like
so it's like, it's literally the same switch in your mind where it's like, it's the fuck it switch, But one of it's
But
really
it's
what
the
it is.
contributing choice
It's
that
the
you make
commitment switch,
underlying.
bro.
Yeah.
It's the commitment switch. Which commitment are you making? Are you committing to removing yourself and not participating or engaging or exploring, or are you committing to taking the risk? You know? And that's the whole thing is every time you want to move forward, it's going to be a risk
The
because
mild sacrifices in
we
between.
just don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
Right? And that's always going to be uncomfortable, but you can train yourself to be very comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
You can, and that's like the whole point of internal dexterity is finding where your boundaries lie and then exceeding past your boundaries, knowing that every single step is still a risk. But if you sacrifice the right things in order to achieve the bigger things, you're still making decisions that are inevitably pushing you forward. And
Correct. Yeah, because at that point, failure is a success at that point because you have moved forward and learned. Yeah.
failing forward.
Yeah.
It's a mindset, and it's
Right.
uniquely rounded and grounded towards what you're passionate about and what you're trying to achieve. But that's
And that's the thing, though, man, is like, what are you trying to achieve? That's a question that I find a lot of people struggle with today. It's a question that I struggled with for a while, like, like all the way until I was like 25, 26. I didn't know what I was trying to do, man. Like, I didn't think that there was anything that I was really, really good at. Like I was always taught that socializing was kind of more of a negative thing, you know what I mean? Like shut up and go to school and learn and don't worry about talking to your friends too much. But like in the end, that's kind of what I ended up, majoring is talking to people and making friends, you know? It's like
because you were also forced to be silent like myself.
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like just generally everybody in the American school system right now, in public education system, is forced to be silent. You get an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes a day of socializing with your friends, and after that, anything else is like punished. So, like, I grew up confused. Like, I didn't know that that was a skill set that I could apply in society. It's like socialization, And I feel like a lot of kids get that way because, like, there's a lot of skills that aren't addressed. There's a lot of topics and subjects that are super valuable, super practical and useful in society, super like necessary and like really called for right now
Economics
that aren't being taught at the rate that they should, if at all, in public education. So
I know, and we've sat down and had that conversation a lot too because
no, we'll
I
go
didn't
for it.
have
You want to have
financial
5
education.
podcasts? Let's talk about the education system.
Oh, we could do this again. We could definitely make this a regular session.
Yeah.
Having the deeper regulatory podcast episodes where we dive into what are some of the things that we can.
Oh,
really
bro, if
fix
you want to do
versus
that, it
not.
could be a limited series right now, and I could break because I'm telling you, bro, I've already done this in my head where it's like I've broken it down to the institutions that need to be modified for that shit to work properly. But everybody already knows it, dude. Everybody that can do something about that already knows it and isn't doing it, and it's by design.
I know, and that's why it's like one of those little things. But when you were talking about like the things that the switches that flip within your head, and you were talking about Cadence when she was young too. It does relate to when I found out I was going to be a dad because I went from, oh fuck, I got to work 40 hours this week to I don't care, 90, 120 hours, let's go. It's a it's a knowing that you're not going to be able to make ends and you're not going to be able to give what you want to give out of life if you don't push and strive. And I know a lot of men in general, because this is really focused around mental health too, like how to be more durable for yourself, because in doing so, you're going to make it more feasible for those around you that witness you as you strive. Like at that point in time, I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then, I then lost the opportunity to be a dad. So I then really lost myself and I had to re-find myself. So when it comes to what makes you want to push you, I know that family is always the first thing on your mind. because you want the best for them, which is why you strive to be the best for you.
Right. And I would say this, bro, is like they're a big, they're probably the majority even. I would maybe not the majority, but half the reason for sure that I want to succeed in life is my family, right? And I feel like that's probably common. But like I feel like if you let it get beyond 50%, like that other 50% has to be you, man. You want to have to succeed for you just as much as everybody else, or you're not going to do it, dude. Or you're not going to do it just for everybody else,
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
that's your why, though. In
Yeah.
general, your why is definitely needing to be a half focus upon yourself because something I'm really learning at this point actually is the fact that I can't make anything happen without making myself happen first. And making my dreams and aspirations one of my number one priorities for that 50%.
Right.
Because these are things that people have told me my whole life don't make sense. Yet I know with the right conversations, it makes a world of difference.
Right.
And that's what I've been good at. And I can honestly say, even Grandpa was telling me I've never heard someone give better advice.
Right.
And I can actually attribute that to many of the conversations I've had with you over the years.
Yeah, I mean, that comes from a lot of things, man. That comes from a father who was a little bit older than most people's father, you know? He's kind of like nearly 40 years older than me. So I got a older person's perspective through my early childhood, which is a little bit weird, right? That's not really common. So that gave me a bit more of a unique perspective. I had a bit more experience under my belt, I felt like, at an earlier age, just because my dad had been through so much more, you know, while before he raised me. And like you could definitely tell a difference in my brother and I, in our perspective. You could tell that my brother was raised by my father when he was young, you know? And it's like, it's a give and take, you know what I mean? Because it's like a lot of the things that, you know, if we're going to talk about men's mental health, it's like my dad was a Vietnam veteran, freaking Marine medic, came back and became a CHP officer, pretty much like the embodiment of an American hero. And like, I grew up my entire life trying to like really hit that mark as a man, you know, and like even today it pains me to really like sit there and have to accept that I'll never hit that, you know. And your sister, you know, my wife is always trying to console me and say like it doesn't matter that you're not doing the same thing, like you're going to help people, you know, you want to help people, you're going to contribute, but like I don't know, I just feel like trying to be your father is something that every son goes through, but I feel like that bar is super high to reach, you know? Like, and to hit it, I would have had to have done the same exact thing as him, but it's something that he told me not to do my whole life. So, like, do I be a man and listen to my dad, or be a man and not?
Well, I mean,
Do I be a man and disobey him and do the same thing just to be like him? Because
no.
that seems dumb, right? But then at the same time, the path that I'm taking, that my dad is more proud of me for taking, society would call me less manly for taking.
They can call us less manly, but at this point, so many of us are so broken from the older ways that were driven into us than sustainably being actionable in what it is to be a man for ourselves. Because we're trying to reach a mark that is unreachable by men now. Because,
I feel like no, and I feel like there's people that go and become Marines and CHP officers today.
well, yeah, but
I feel like I could
inevitably,
have done it even. Like it was an option at one point, but like,
inevitably, it goes deeper than that.
but my dad didn't want me to do it. You know, he said the reason that I did those things was so you didn't have to ever do that shit.
Yeah.
And like, to me, it's kind of like I don't know. I'm glad that he told me that because I'm sure I wouldn't want to have seen war or none of that type of shit. I'm pretty happy that I took the route that I did. But it's just this nagging feeling, you know what I mean? That like
You were not hitting the
I'll
bar that
never
they've
hit that mark.
established.
Yeah, I won't ever do it. Yeah.
See, but it's not about hitting their bar. It's
Right.
about hitting our bar.
Right. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself over and over every day.
It's something that, trust me, I have to sit with myself because you know I love my dad more than anything in this fucking world. But
Mm.
there's a certain amount of what he considers manliness that takes him away from being the fullest man that I know he can be.
And isn't that just the weirdest balance right there? Because that depends so much on perspective. And when we get into things like that, then it's going to be like really variable. Like, and those are the types of things right there that really inspired me to take psychology on as a study because like what do you expect? Like if you meet somebody new, can you expect that they're going to share more of your type of perspective on what a man is or your father's? What can you base that assumption on?
The only thing we can base it on is the history and our
Maybe their
perspective of
age?
it. Yeah.
Like
Wisdom in general.
I'm
But
saying what can you base an assumption that they're going to think? You know what I mean? What can you expect somebody that you've never met before to think about what a man is?
well,
You
I
know,
don't have a
when there's so many
solid
different
perspective on
when
it.
there's so many different opinions on what that is. It's like, how can I feel like I'm missing a mark when it really, like in reality, it doesn't even really exist?
It doesn't, and that's kind of where I'm at. Is like he based his mark off of one of his stepfathers that taught him how to work hard and be a supportive man, but also he didn't learn how to be a fully within his emotional depths able to talk about all the things that he needed because he was trying to just provide, which I feel the real truest mark of what a man means to me is someone that is going to find the balance within themselves to not just be all this masculine energy, but allows himself to have the nurturing compassion within himself to be there not only as a good standing figure, but as a good male role model.
And see, and that's the difficulty I have, bro, is like my dad did do that. He wasn't just like this cop and this fucking soldier and ran it like super military hardcore. Like, no, you know, like
No, he had that.
very loving, very caring, very like like you were saying, bro, like a very good father, provided and protected, nurtured and and disciplined, you know, had the balance and like, and that's where like I have the difficulty because it wasn't this one where it was like it was one extreme or the other. It was like he had that balance, and I will never even have the opportunity to achieve it because I won't do the same things.
No, you get to achieve that balance through your own decisions. It doesn't mean you're not
Right.
going to reach that mark. You're going to reach it and you're not even going to realize it. And then you get to look back and say, oh shit, I actually made it. And
That's what
part
I'm
of your,
banking on.
and that's kind of like why I'm like, that's one of those limiting beliefs. It's, I don't think I'll ever reach the peak male performance manliness of my father.
But I don't feel
But
like it limits me though.
It doesn't,
Like, I feel
it
like
does not limit you.
I feel like it's like
Because
one of those
you
things
do
that it's just
have
it just bugs the shit out of me, you know? Like it's not like I'm gonna stop trying because of it. It's just like fuck, you know? It's gonna nag me. And there's nothing that I can tell myself or do to really stop that, bro, because like it was developed so early. And at this point to me it's like even humorous because I've dealt with it so much. But like it's just never gonna stop. And I feel like the whole point that I was making was like it's so deeply embedded in me because of the way we were raised. And so like as a new generation of parents and fathers and male figures, it's like we really need to work hard to change that whole shit. We need to work hard to change the narrative because there's people working hard to sustain it. You know?
And that's exactly why I'm sitting here right now having this conversation with you. Because, like,
Like we can't be afraid of expressing our emotions and
Exactly.
then wondering why in the fuck nobody understands us, bro.
And that's where I'm at, is I want people to know it's not something they have to be afraid of because someone wants to call them a pussy because they decided to have emotions. Like that's not how it needs to be looked at when it comes to what being a man is. It's understanding that's their walk, that's their decision on how they're going to handle it. But if we can apply guidance through discipline in the right areas towards ourselves, we can really come to a place where it's not hard to have the right conversations when it's
Bro,
needed.
it's building the next generation, and it is embedding support within our own communities. That's what it is. And it's like the only way that's
Building
gonna
the
happen.
unity in community.
The
once
only
again.
way that's gonna happen is if we normalize things. Like we need to fight back against ostracizing emotional expression. You know, even right now, dude, watch some dude is gonna watch this and call me a pussy, right?
They're
And
definitely going to call me a pussy.
that is fucking sad. That I will mention emotional expression automatically make somebody uncomfortable, and right there, that's a really big indicator that he probably needs to express some of that suppressed emotion. And like that's the thing, right? As men, we're told,
We're
suck it the fuck
dogs.
up. Literally, suck it up.
Suck it up, walk it
Suck
off.
it up. What does that mean? When you suck something up, you're sucking that in and suppressing it. When you are going to suck something inward and suppress it inside of something, then you are physically, by laws of physics, taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
It's a finite amount. This is not, you cannot suppress this infinitely.
And that's where feeling comes into play in general.
And so,
because-
just like anything, if you're going to shove it into a tight space and put it under pressure, what's going to happen after that last straw gets put in there? Right. It's just a ticking time bomb. And it's like instead of releasing the pressure slowly and addressing things as they come up and solving things when they're small issues, it becomes larger issues. And then we're sitting there going, this has been a problem for so long and I can't believe you haven't noticed. And it's like that type of shit right there, when you're saying, it's been a problem for so long, you can't believe you haven't noticed, right? What you've done is you've accepted responsibility for the problem.
That's another thing that's big right now is a lot of people don't accept their accountability for their actions. And it's driving us as men into a place where we can't even help regardless.
Right.
Because all of that suppression has sat within their subconscious mind at this point to become an automatic negative thought.
100%, yeah.
Which is continuously making them retract instead of
It's
going
avoidance.
in.
It's avoidance, dude. Yeah.
It creates bad connectivity issues too, and it drives wedges in relationships, foundational thoughts that need to be had when it comes to decision making, and it's kind of terrible.
Absolutely. And you see communication deteriorate. If you see communication deteriorating, and this is within any relationship, this could be on your own. This could be a team member on your baseball team, bro. If the communication is gone, then the relationship is not there. And that's how it's going. It's like it's either gonna be gone or is already, because they're not talking, bro. Because they're not communicating. And this is just how it goes, right? So like if we know, this is a known fact. Communication is the key, right? If we know that, then how can we still be afraid to express ourselves?
Only because of other outlying factors that came with other narratives.
It's because of how
Society.
we are self-conscious about how we are going to be viewed. It's that simple, bro. I don't want to look like a bitch, to put it simply, right? I'm
Yeah.
not about to sound like a bitch.
Yeah.
I've heard fools preface sentences like that. Not sound like a bitch. Like you got to give me a disclaimer before you say something important, dog.
I mean, I definitely get you on that one, and it's sad
And it'll be
because
about
I just
simple.
gotta,
It'll be about simple shit. Yeah, you know, I sound like a bitch, dog, but it's kind of cold. It's like full. Like you're
like
not a bitch if you're
who
cold right now,
told
dog.
you to stop being a bitch about the fact that you were cold?
Right.
Because that's an underlying tone to a poor situation.
Well, I mean, but it could be anything though. It couldn't have been. It It could be not even nobody even could have told them that about the cold. It could have been
No,
about fucking,
in general,
yeah,
just the
just
repetitive
some dumb,
conversational
yeah.
topics that then force us to minimize expression.
Like, let me make sure that my standing as a man isn't compromised by saying this because
Because
it
I
could
need
be
a sweater,
perceived
dog.
as feminine. Yeah, like because I'm expressing sensitivity.
See, but that's another thing when you look at like the double helix. We are created from both genetics. So trying to force ourselves into a box in which we are only one particular side of both of our genetic strands also rewrites over multitudes of times, which is why we talk about cognitive therapy, because you can rewrite those things. It is now
100%.
proven over time and time again now
Yeah,
that we can rewrite those strains by enacting.
it's behavior, man.
Yeah,
It's behavior. Develop new habits, and then you'll have new habits, and that's what happens. And like your habits guide your life. You know what I mean? Your routines guide your life. What are you going to put the time into every day? Because that's what you're going to start seeing results in. You
yeah.
know, if you want to sit there and, you know what I mean, do fucking 1,000 sit-ups every single day, no matter what, and that's what you're going to be. You know what
I
I mean?
mean,
You could be
I'll
doing a
try for
thousand
a
other. You could
hundred.
be trying to do 1,000 other things every single day. But if you make sure that you do those 1,000 sit-ups every single day, guess what? Who's going to have abs, dog? That guy. You know what I mean? So it's like it's whatever you're going to be. Like I said earlier, it's whatever you're going to be consistent in doing, which is why it's important to pick a passion because it's going to be really easy to be consistent when you like it.
Absolutely. No, I give it to my dad because he forced himself to do things that he lost the passion in just to make sure that we were okay.
Right.
So I give that to him 100%, and I'll tell him that every day until the day that we both pass away. That I'm proud of the man he was for the situations that he was in to make sure that me and Amy were okay. Because
Certainly.
that showed immense dexterity under pressure that I can hardly fathom into words.
Mm.
But like in general, like the biggest conversational thing that we do have to think about is how do we show up for ourselves mentally when we learn that we are the people outside of thought, because that's a subconscious reaction to previous happenings. So how ultimately, when we start being the viewer of the thoughts, how do we want to change and address that inner self due to the fact that that's just a scared version of us that was underlying in the first place?
I think that instead of trying to protect the insecurity um,
Minimalization.
with aggression or minimization or suppression, is we need to protect it with open expression because the only way those insecurities are really going to be dealt with and mediated are when they're openly discussed and fully known about. You know what I mean? It's like these are insecurities that are like universal. And like I'm sure that every man has gone through the same period or like some type of period of like discovery of like, man, you know, like it's every guy that feels like this and I felt like it was just me for the longest time and I felt like fucking weird the whole time. And come to find out, that's why everybody was fucking acting all weird the whole time because we all felt weird like this because we're all trying to be fucking macho man, but nobody really knows what the fuck that is anymore because it's not the same time it was. You know what I mean? Like
And a lot
the
of a lot of scientific shit goes into that as well,
the
especially with
utilities,
sharecropping and everything else,
the
minimizing
utility
it.
of your skill set, right, is not the same as it was 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. As technology keeps evolving and society demands new skill sets, older skill sets that were once used commonly as the main provisional tool die out and newer skill sets become those provisional tools. So to say that men are only these skill sets is at least a dated perspective and at most a harmful one. So I mean, that's something that, I've really tried to sort out a lot in my own head, but who are we convincing, right?
The only ones we're convincing is ourselves when we're sitting there without talking about it. Exactly. I find it that's the biggest problem too, and why there's such a large rate of loss within the male community at this point in time too, is because now even societal standards are going so outside of a reasonable box that we can't even fit into what we once held as moral.
Because that's also subjective, man, and that's going to come a lot with the assimilation and integration of culture, bro. Like, we are living in a very volatile period in time socially, just because there's a lot of different cultures and different types of groups of people finally starting to be able to communicate on a regular basis pretty easily. Somebody can reach out to somebody on the other side of the world with a simple video call on their phone now. Like, the fact that that's even possible, the fact that we got people playing video games with people on the other side of the world, talking to them, finding out about what their culture is. You don't even have to leave the house to get this type of cultural immersion experience, like a real firsthand experience, because like of our communication abilities. And that's really how key communication is when you improve those abilities and your capacity to communicate, it really, really changes the landscape, Like,
I even saw something though earlier today that kind of freaked me out in the communication spaces. They're already trying to drop 6G by 2030, but 6G literally enacts with your biometric nervous system.
so does 5G.
Yeah, but this is where they could. There's certain aspects of this that are kind of freaky, and I can give you the video on this later.
Well, I'll tell you right now, though, I'm not going to stop using cell phones.
Oh no, but when you realize that they're able to change your thought pattern on how you're even walking and the rate in which you're moving.
Well, are they going to get me somewhere quicker?
Because they already did an unknown development group of over 200 targeted individuals here in the United States.
Yeah, but they all got the COVID vaccine.
Not even the vaccine, man. Not even the vaccine. I mean, that is a thing that we're trying to. Definitely don't want to cross that barrier right now. That blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, that blood-brain barrier. Yeah.
But the rate in which technology is progressing is demanding, nonetheless. But I also feel like the societal standards have lessened to what we consider to be grotesque behavior towards each other.
Wouldn't you feel like what you base that off of is a lot of Christian values?
I don't. Because
I feel like it is, bro, because it's like you're asking me what pretty much deviance is, right? Like, what we consider deviance has narrowed. Things that were once considered deviant are now normalizing.
Well, I mean, I've taken some really deep dives over the last year when it came to understanding specific ideologies when it comes to religion and the differences. But one thing I also deeply went into, which could be a very large, it's a very scary topic to bring up. It is what Yeshua, went through on his personal journey before even returning back to biblical text, which he was a studier of omnism. He wanted to know what other cultural mystic practices were, which helped him become the martyr he was within Christianity.
So, but what I'm saying is this. It's like, when you're talking about what we consider grotesque behavior towards one another, what exactly do you mean, dog? Because people used to just roll up into whole villages and just take each other out and just rape everybody and fucking burn the whole shit down.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's going on in, like, third world countries still. but that on a general scale, right, has improved dramatically
I
over the
mean, it
years.
has improved. I just mean in general with how we treat certain actions within our current society.
Like what?
Okay, like I get everybody's got to make a living, and I'm not going to bash anybody that decides to do certain jobs that literally stay within the parameters of certain industries. However, I do think the normalization of women on OnlyFans as the only means instead of
Do you think that
maybe
that's been normalized?
it has. And
I don't think it's
personally,
been normalized, dude.
it has.
I don't think it has because it's like, or because
One
then we're
in
saying,
one
because
in
then let me say
five
this:
women that
if it
I've
has been
talked to.
normalized, then marriage is deviant.
It
Because if
is.
marriage is still
It
normal,
is at this
then
point.
that's not.
I can tell you right now, I saw a commercial
Oh, actually,
on polygamy the other day.
actually,
Normalizing
marriage is
polygamy.
not the norm.
It's
There
not.
is less actual married people now, yeah, than not. Yep.
And the entire institution of family life
That's why I'm actually
is
going into what I'm
diminishing.
doing is because it's because of that simple fact right there.
Yeah, it's
It's like, and I
diminishing.
don't, and I don't want to say we need to look. I'm not gonna say
And
that
as
we
a
need to
previous poly person,
preserve the nuclear family. No, we need to preserve family. People need a relatively large. Each person needs a relatively large support system that they can count on to be there for them emotionally, for safety needs, for compassion, anything like that. Because the number one thing we need as people
is community.
is each other, correct? You know what I mean? So it's like when you got this loneliness epidemic and like these isolationist trends going on.
But that also comes down to the fact that now there are so many people and the division between sexes happening due to the thought process of, oh, there's a million other people out there that I can have. When ultimately
There's not.
there's not. And I find that to be the
I
driving
think the
force
math on
behind
that. I think
my.
the math on that is like you have. It's like a fractional percentage of compatibility. Like you have a fractional percentage of a chance of being compatible with like some random that you meet. You know what I mean? So like, which is why they say that finding your true love is really like a magical thing. You know what I mean? Because it's crazy. You know, to meet that person and actually do that. But like I feel like that puts a lot of emphasis on the meeting the person. And that is where people are fucking up with the there's a million other people out there is like, what are you gonna do when you get past meeting them? There could be a million people you're compatible with. Do you want to meet them all?
No, you want to be able to
You
sit
want to meet
down.
one
Yeah,
realistically.
yeah.
So if you meet one, I don't understand what the temptation is, right? You won. Like if you won your lottery ticket and you had the option to sell it for another one,
Why would you ever?
why would you do that? Yeah.
Exactly. And it that's where I find
You see a lot of people lose that gamble.
yeah, the societal normalization of, oh, well, I can have whatever I want is not an attitude that's going to create sustainability.
No.
It's only creating more sustainable loss. And I
Yeah.
think that's a great contributing factor to the 460 some odd thousand men that are already dead this year.
Hmm.
And that's a scary thought. How do we reverse that within, how do we feel like we can start to reverse that when certain aspects of even the feminist community, which is also 100% funded by the Rockefeller Foundation to create division and taxation on women in our cultural society.
I feel like any community centered on one group of people is going to create division.
And that's my whole thing. It's like we are still men and women. We are still able to come together and agree upon the fact that unity whether or not you're deciding to stay in a nuclear setting, which no one truly is at this point. They're starting to phase out the
It's rare to find a traditionally nuclear family.
yeah, like and that was also due to that in general when the Rockefellers founded that was so that they could tax the women in society and indoctrinate children earlier. And this was also discussed by a much older gentleman from the Hollywood scene before he passed away. And that's why I find it to still be very important to this day, is because if I can recognize the patterns and I can have the right conversations with the right people, then we can have the opportunity to exact
It's
change.
gonna be suppression, dude. Look, we all know when somebody's holding something in. As men, this is our responsibility, right? If we want to really start changing things, and this is something that I do, and you can vouch for it, is if you want to walk in here with something on your mind and suppress it, and it's gonna be visible that you're suppressing it, then we're not gonna talk about anything else until you fucking address that shit. Because there's no way that we're gonna have any type of good time or be able to enjoy each other's company with this weight in the middle of the dynamic, right? And as men, we try to just leave it there. Let's just ignore it. It's not weighing it down that much. I'll make it be my response. I'll carry the weight, right? I don't want to make it everybody else's problem. But you already did, bro. By not saying anything, now it's everybody else's problem because we got to deal with you trying to fucking suppress the shit the whole time.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So it's like when you see somebody trying to suppress something and they might not really want to talk about it, like, I want you to put a little bit more effort into asking. Don't be rude. Don't tell them they have to do anything, but just kind of let them know that, like,
They have love and support.
what they're going through matters to you, dude, because you care about them. And that's something that men need to hear all the time, too,
Yeah.
is that
Reassurance.
our problems
Matter.
are also valid, and they're valid because people care about us. That's something we need to hear that nobody thinks we do, you know? And it's just like, you get it rarely, in life as a guy, and it feels so good, and you don't want to say anything about it because it'll make you look like a bitch.
Oh, fuck that. I'll cry on this camera right now.
Fuck it.
And I don't even care. It's the fact that it's so minute where we find people that want to genuinely show that, because most of us don't know how to express it. And those
We were
of us
taught
that
not
do,
to. We were taught not to express that shit, bro. We were taught
Exactly.
not to. Like, and it's like that's what I'm saying now. It's like emotional expression has been equated with complaining, and which is equated with crying, which is you're a bitch. Like now, I cannot even say that I'm sad without it being perceived as I'm crying like a bitch, right? And that's the level that we let it get to. We're doing all this work for all these female rights and like all this, and which is right, great, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely give them all the fucking rights, and I'm all with that and everything. But that doing something right for one group doesn't mean that the other group doesn't deserve any attention or deserves to be neglected or deserves negativity, right? Like it's not the men today in existence that put all that shit on paper back then. And in fact, a lot of the people who are taking that shit off the paper today are also men, and there's a lot of women doing it too, and that's also because of men.
Yeah, because
So
we witness it. We witness how it's attributing to.
well,
the
we all
downfall.
when it gets down to it, bro, it's like it was all men at one point. Now there's women, right? You know what I mean? So it's like I really hate how these movements that can be framed as, pursuits of unity turn into, these campaigns that are just like divisive. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna pick that cause, then you can't be for women and men, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Right?
Yeah, no,
you
we're
have
supposed to be in support of
as
both.
as a father of a as a father of a daughter and a son. I got to tell you right now, it's completely possible to be team man and woman at the same time because it's team human, dog.
It's Earth Gang.
Because
Everybody for everybody.
because it is Earth Gang.
Everybody for everybody. And I find that division is creating all for me. I need to be all for me. And that is what I'm seeing mostly in public now is like, oh, no, I'm going to go handle this for me and only for me. type of mentality, which is creating even more separation because they don't feel like they're going to have that support, which is why I decided to do this. Because, like, I'm sorry, once we get to a certain point where our emotional needs are not met in any direction, the only thing we do is isolate, and I'm guilty of doing it myself.
100%. You're just gonna remove yourself because what are you gonna do, man? You know what I mean? And what you're gonna do is complain, but then you're gonna look like a bitch, boom. So you don't, right? You isolate, and that's the problem, bro. So if you want to talk about another change you could make, that's it right there. Is don't isolate. You know, when I have a problem,
Community.
I go
Rat
straight
Park.
to my wife, bro.
Rat Park. Think of that.
I go straight to my wife. I have a problem in my relationship. I go to my wife, right? And don't get me wrong, it's not like I just like impulsively say everything. I'm like, oh, she made me mad, and I'm just go off. No, I sit there and I think about it. All right, did she really fuck up? Do I really have a right to be mad about it? And then by the time I'm done thinking about it like that, I can address it in a respectful manner, to where she takes it not offensive. She doesn't take it offensively. Like she
No,
doesn't get
because
offended by it, and then she actually gets the message that I'm trying to send. And it's literally
that's also understanding how calculated you have to be in removing yourself when you're getting to a point.
But it's talking about what we're talking about is thinking before you speak right now, man.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You know what I mean? And it's like this is something that I feel like everybody should learn at a pretty early age, but I don't feel like everybody's really taught the importance of. Like I
No,
feel like
because a lot of people are shoved off.
I feel like a lot of people really, yeah, or are taught that you speak up. If you've got something on your mind that you speak up. And that's not, and I'm going to say that's like rarely the right thing to do. Like you really need to make sure that you got the full picture before you decide to formulate an opinion and act on it, you know?
And this is also like, this is half of why my political decision to be third party libertarian came into play in the first place. It's because I can look at both sides, see where they are not contributing
No, they're
to
both
each other.
lying.
Yeah, they're not contributing to like the inevitability of what people truly need,
No.
so that we could make the more valid decision on how to
We're
work.
not making any decisions, bro.
No, I know we're not,
Yeah.
because it's just paid for anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But
Bob out.
yeah, exactly. But like when it comes to community, like we do have the opportunity to make some differences in our unique jurisdictions as people within our community governments, but it's not going to reflect
I feel like we have
politically.
the most
above.
power in our own home. We have the most power in our own local communities, and not in government, but with each other and like in the population.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and that's the whole thing, man. It's like if you can get community strength, you know, if you can get it to a point that's stronger than the government, you know, that's where the government ceases to have the power, is because you guys can write everything down in that little fancy book that you want, but if nobody agrees to obey it, then what are you going to do to enforce it?
Well, that's the whole thing, is like now so many people are afraid to even stand up for the rights that they were born into, but that's because no one was taught the importance of it.
No.
They weren't. And
No.
and it sucks because I can say that coming from my own education,
Right.
that we were not told or taught the importance past what those documents were.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, it makes it harder for people to want to stand up because they got guns, they have the training to subdue me.
Well, but I mean, and now we're talking about an extreme situation, but what I'm saying is just in terms of what we are normalizing socially, right?
Yes.
Like we are picking up a lot of stuff from online that's going viral, that's not necessarily healthy or positive,
No.
right? And like, and
It's
I'm
also
not saying that
diminishing.
everything has to be sunshine and rainbows and constructive and all that shit. Sometimes it's, you need the negativity, right? And it's funny to laugh at stupid shit sometimes. But definitely the positive and constructive things need to outweigh the negativity. And like, that is not currently happening. Like people, we're like hyper comparative right now, right? Like we're really like competitive with each other and like trying to one up each other and trying to even the playing field all the time. So like what we're gonna find pleasure in as a society with a mentality like that is the failure of others. And when we are finding joy in others' failure, then we are working against ourselves as a society.
Yeah, no, and it's scary when you come to the realization of seeing it.
Oh, it's the norm for sure. Nobody wants you to succeed.
No, they want
And
to see
everybody
you
knows that.
because also that's another thing that negatively comes from the competition that is now the mutual everybody gets a trophy shit.
Right.
Because
Right. It's
no
not
one
everybody
is
deserves it just as much.
exactly. And that's also a problem within why the division is there. It's because you can't just have everybody win. As much as they wanted to push that narrative, that's not how it works.
No,
There are
no.
there
You
are
can have
people that
everybody
play.
compete.
You can have
You can have
everyone
everybody
compete.
compete, and you can have everybody playing the same game, playing in the same competition, but they cannot be mad when an organic advantage allows a winner. You know what I mean? If you're going to be fat and slow, you cannot be mad that the really fast in shape person beat you in this race. You know what I mean? So that's, pick your battles, pick your races. Should be passionate about it. That way, even if you do come in last, at least you're happy that you did it.
Exactly. And it's more trying to envelop the self-worth and
Correct.
confidence to push forward because everybody's basing what worth is off of opinions of others instead of understanding that it's what you give worth to inside of you.
Correct. Yeah, they're basing it off of every opinion except their own. And
And
that's the only one that actually matters on that one. So,
exactly.
and that's funny because it's like that's really like the only time your opinion matters. And people miss it.
It's kind of miserable to think about though too because like I don't know how many years I said I can't, I'm not worth it, this, that. But in the truth, that was just other people's projections.
100%,
And then
man.
every single time I applied myself to things that made me passionate, I succeed.
Correct, because you want to do it, man. You like it. You find the intrinsic reward, like it's giving you like just the satisfaction is enough for you to keep going. And right there, you know that you made the right decision. You know, like when you're doing something that like you wake up excited to go do.
Hmm.
You know, and like I fucking for a long time I couldn't even believe it. That was I'm like people wake up excited. What the fuck? You know, but like,
They had joy today?
but like even right now, like financially it's tough. The economy's a little bit difficult right now, and I'm going through this like transitional period of trying to finish this degree and everything. But I'm still waking up excited every day because I'm working towards a goal that like
Fulfills you.
yeah, it's fulfilling and I know that is going to be worth it, you know? And so like you got to find that, man. You got to find what's going to be worth it and that's totally up to you, you know. Once again, you know, what's worth it? That's up to you to decide, man. Because once you decide that it's worth it, then you'll do whatever it takes.
Just as every day is worth it when you get to go walk in there and see that little rambunctious rascal.
A little Riley, yeah, for sure, man.
Because as soon as he walks in, even if I've had a crappy day and I
Oh, it's
hear
just a
Uncle
big old
Chris,
bright light, yeah.
yeah, bro, like it's an ever shining beam of just
It is
etheric light.
difficult to have a frown all the in the room, man. Yeah.
I guess we could like really get some comparison there when it comes to like how Cadence feels about it, but maybe I'll have that
Yeah.
on a different note one day.
Yeah, yeah.
But what do you?
Let's
If
pause
you-
right here.
Welcome back. We took a nice little meditative
Leisure
break. Yeah, a little leisure break for a cigarette. Remember, grab yourselves a chill bell. We have a link in bio for the True Value podcast. This is literally what it looks like when it's not inflated. It is 3 pounds. Sling it over your shoulder. Go and inflate it anywhere. Just drag a little air into it. Roll it up. Put it together. You're good to go. Good to have a good time with your friends. Excellent for music festivals, camping, anything recreation. and we stand by it 100%. But back to finishing the topics at hand, how do you feel inevitably? Do you think that we're going to make that positive change within men strategically?
I think it'll happen more organically, man. I think that right now, like things like this, getting it into the air and kind of discussing that, publicizing it is the first step to normality. You know what I mean? So, like, we're doing our part right now. We have to continue to do our part in life. And that's kind of the only thing that you can do to strategically promote it is kind of just make it known as known as possible, stand up for it, advocate for it, you know, whenever possible. But I think that men in general and society in general are waking up to these problems. You know, like we're discussing it right now. It's something that wasn't happening before. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of media covering men's issues like this, and it was certainly not something that people wanted to discuss. So just the fact that this is even happening right now shows progress, and I feel like if the progress is anything like all the other social progresses that's occurred this century, it's going to be pretty rapid. So hopefully before we're getting ready to kick the bucket, we can see some actual meaningful change, you know, because that would definitely
It's for sure
soften the blow right there.
It's for sure one of my hopes and dreams, at least within having good, dedicated conversation, because 70% of the suicide rate right now is men.
Yeah, that's been pretty consistent.
And that right there just shows how...
There's a lot of pressure, dude.
Yeah, exactly. The pressure that comes with the previous...
There's a lot of pressure that we're
dictation.
not allowed to talk about.
No, that we previously were told we weren't allowed to talk
Correct, that's what I'm saying. And so, like, that we believe we're not allowed to talk about, you know? And, like, that is a super dangerous thing because if we allow that to continue, then we're allowing all of this, the 70% suicide rate and all this other bullshit that we go through, dude. It's also going to continue. It's going to continue for our sons. It's going to continue for their sons, bro. And not only that, is if it's going to continue for them, then it's also going to continue for our daughters and granddaughters and too, because it's like the problems that we deal with as individuals are actually group issues because a chain's only as strong as its weakest link, man. Like we need to have a strong chain and a system that doesn't reward weakening other links.
Yeah. And, you know, even this week, I can say Chris got abandoned. Anderson got abandoned at the beach 2 days ago.
Really? By who? His friends?
People that we considered to be friends, yeah. And honestly, when he called me in the middle of the night and I couldn't go and help him, it made me feel shitty.
Right.
But the fact is, like, if that's even a normalized behavior, that's not gonna help action change. The only thing that's ever helped create actionable change was me consistently showing up.
Yeah.
Consistently showing compassion.
Yeah.
And
dude, it's difficult. It's difficult to do, but nothing that means anything is just easy, dude. Like nothing meaningful is accomplished easily.
And it's not an overnight thing.
No.
It takes repetitive consistency.
Correct. That's the only way change happens, bro. Is repetition. Repetition. It's the only way you can learn anything. It's the only way you change anything. Is just repeating it. You know? It's like...
And that's even been proven with Chinese bowls, actually, like pottery bowls. Because they did a study where they had one guy sit down and make the same bowl the same way to perfection, and they were only ever a little bit off, but they put 10 people in a pottery barn and gave them a time limit to make as many as they possibly could, and came out with thousands more that were even better than the perfected craftsman, because the repetitiveness created that change. It made it muscle memory, it made
Right.
it flawless, it made
Right.
it fast. And distribution aside, the real thing is like, I want to have these conversations with more men and more people that want to come on and share their stories and how they've come and surpassed certain inevitable difficulties when it came to just being able to express and be themselves, and how they overcame those stressful situations.
And you know what's another good thing to think about, bro? Is what's something you maybe could have used during those times that you didn't have access to or couldn't, really reach for whatever reason. Maybe you didn't think about it, but now that it would have been useful. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Which ways could you have coped better? Which ways could you have?
It's not even really like, it wasn't even like coping. It's just kind of like,
What tools were at your disposal that you didn't take advantage of? That could have made the difference. What type of outreach could you have done prior that would have allowed you
well,
to
I feel like for me personally, probably it would have been taking bigger risks, right? Like getting out into the world a little bit more earlier. I just felt like the obligations that I had at home were more important than trying to pursue my own personal goals at the time.
And it was.
And I feel like, I don't know now, bro. Like, I feel like maybe I should have thought about that a little bit more and kind of peppered my time out. Like, I didn't have to go all in or nothing, but that's the thing, is I went all in one and did nothing of another, and like, I should have at least split that some way. And I think that that's probably a big thing that I learned in early adulthood was like absolutism, right? Like
Nothing true.
one or the other, that type of mentality, you lose half of it every time, whatever it is, so like you need to find a way, if possible, to have both. And it sounds like maybe selfish or greedy, but that's not the case, bro, because you need both men and women. You need both day and night. You need both most of the time.
As above, so below, as within, so without.
Correct. Like it's action reaction. It's a balancing act of two opposing forces every time. And if you're not firmly placed in the middle, then you're off balance. So yeah, just definitely that's something personally, right? Like that I just would have known that I could have used, that I definitely use now, that hopefully maybe hearing this, somebody struggling with it maybe is a little bit younger, right? The age that I was will learn it quicker than I did,
It's fair, because that's taken. You've seen me.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen my internal.
You know me, dog.
You know me. And at this point, you've seen me come above and rise to the occasion, and that's a lot of people have seen me go from despair to far beyond what they thought I would even do. And I can attribute some of my success to the harshness of the conversations I didn't want to have, and facing that internal self and version of me that wasn't thinking about self-gain or what I was going to achieve from self-gain by being better for me.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that have tuned into this episode, we thank you for joining with us today. And we appreciate all the time and consideration to come and watch the podcast. I hope that this has created some value to you today. And once again, check into Chillbo. Give us a like, a follow, and a share. We definitely have the link in bio if you'd like to get yourself one of these. And hopefully you continue to share the wealth and love that I'm trying to spend and share with this podcast, so that we can all come together uniformly as a people, because that's where the true value lies for me, is seeing us come together. So everybody, this is Christian and Lance, and we'll sign out. Thank you guys for tuning in. Love you.